Hey guys, I have an announcement to make at the end of the video, so wait till the end of the video to hear about what it is. There is a really important concept you need to know if you're someone who wants to make animations, comics, if you want to direct films, be a cinematographer, photographer, storyboarder, any of those things. This is an extremely important concept, so it's about time I did a video on it. In French, it's called mise-en-scène, and in English, it just means within the frame. So I'm going to use the example of a music video that I've been making. I'm going to show you a scene from it. I've made lots of efforts in this to arrange things in the frame to give an emotionally significant meaning to everything that's in there. This is basically going to demonstrate the power of arranging things within the frame, the space of the frame, using your different elements like the direction of your lines, the relative sizes of the components in your scene, the angles that you use, the camera movement that you use. All of these things make up mise-en-scène. These subjects are important because they will help you to create empathy with your audience, the people watching your animations. You're actually making this animation of yours, or if it's a comic book, if it's a live action film, you'll be making it so that it can be watched and enjoyed, appreciated, and it will connect with other people. These techniques have been used by companies to make billions of dollars. It's been used by governments to make propaganda campaigns. It's that powerful. Plot is basically what happens in the story without any of the emotional stuff. The story is the emotion that you attach to it. The plot of this section is that there is this character who is making a voyage across the sea from Haiti to America, the United States. They get into a storm and they are essentially about to die from this storm. The storm is going to just destroy their boats from these waves that are crashing in. Okay, so that was what I explained to you as the plot. Now the story is all of the emotional significance that you attach onto that plot. So we're with this character through this. We are experiencing it through him. And when this character feels scared, we need to feel scared too. If we're not feeling scared for the character, then there's a disconnect there. So that's all I'm going to show you of the scene. Some of these shots I animated, some of them were animated by very talented animators who I was working with, and I had the privilege to work with other animators on this project. If you want to see more of their work, their links will be in the description of this video, so you can go and check out their stuff as well. So we see in this shot him leaning over the side of the boat, having just realized that his dear friend has been lost to the ocean. So that is some powerful stuff, and it's really, that would be traumatizing. So I was wondering what I could do for that. Actually, what I decided to do was to instill a feeling of helplessness. If I move through the frames, you can see that we're with the boat here and we're looking over the side with him. So we're basically seeing what he sees, but we know where he is spatially in the frame. And we're seeing the character who's been thrown overboard, and he's gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller until he's gone. And we feel powerless to stop him because we are in the boat, or we're at the boat, and we're not following him with that. He's getting smaller and smaller, and all we can do, we're forced to just watch him drown. And I find that it's quite traumatizing to feel that. And I had this idea for the mast to snap off in the wind, the rushing wind. I decided to add some camera shake in, and it really made a big difference in conveying the intensity of what had just happened, the amount of energy that's just exploded. It is like an explosion. So I wanted to put this in a very sudden movement that is out of his control. It's again the feeling of powerlessness, the feeling of being at the mercy of the ocean. So this thing just exploded, and it's just another one of those things that he had no control over. He couldn't do anything about it. But also it's quite intimidating, you know, any kind of explosion, it shocks you. So with this one, I didn't want to build anticipation into the shot. In fact, I wanted it to be sudden, like you wouldn't expect it. There are two forms of dramatic effect that you use in something that's scary. You use either suspense or you use shock. And shock is something that you don't see coming, and suspense is something that you do see coming, and you can see it coming but you can't do anything about it. So they both cause sort of distress in the viewer's mind. I use both of them here. So I used suspense in the later scenes, but I wanted to also use shock, so that's why I put this in here. You get this, and here you can see that what that was is, as you can see, the mast explodes off and you see it get taken away and thrown almost like a ragdoll, and this mast is being flung, and it's sort of rotating like this, and I felt like that was very violent imagery. And this is on a primal level. This makes sense in a primal way. If you see something flinging off like that and moving at high speeds, what I see there with my primal brain, my animal brain, is I see a body. I see a body going, ugh. Imagine him, you know, in that situation. He's just seen the mast fly off. This is a strong, sturdy plank of wood, and he's a fleshy human of about the same size. In fact, it's smaller size. So looking at that, he looks at that and thinks the mast was just uprooted and flung off from the wind, from the strength of the wind. I'm next. So when I see that, I see like the implications of what that would do to a human. That would kill someone if they were moving at that speed. So I imagined that that's kind of like a stand-in for a human. It's kind of on a subliminal level that's saying, this is dangerous, this storm is too powerful, it's too strong, it's going to destroy you, and it's only a matter of time. This one I used some really simple things. So we've got the head of the character, and we can see that we can see his facial expressions from here. So I couple the close-up shots of the character where we can see his facial expressions. When you're close up to the character, you're seeing all those things go through his mind. You're kind of in the head of the character, and that's important in a story where you have to feel empathy. But at the same time, I couple that with these larger shots which are from outside the boat to show what is actually happening in the scene, but also what's happening to the boat, what's the situation that he's in. He's in a difficult situation, and then it's like, okay, now let's go back to him and see how he reacts to that, the situation that he's in. And this is really important for creating empathy with your character and the audience. So do they connect on an emotional level? In order for them to connect, I think that it's important to be able to show the character reacting to certain things around him. We got the speed of the water. Everything around him is happening too fast for him. He wants everything to just slow down because it's happening in front of him, and he's powerless. Again, powerless. So to emphasize that, I did a sort of warp of the boat here. So I showed that, you see, the back of the boat here is actually very small, and I've kind of warped the perspective to make it stretched out so that gives the implication of speed. I also put these intensity lines which are moving very fast, the sort of rushing current, and with the waves, I created the shot, I situated the shot with the angle so that the waves, the rushing waves, are in fact over his head. The waves are on top of him. Now, instinctively, as an animal, something which is on top is something which is dominant. So in quite a few of the shots as well, I put it so that the waves, like in here as well, waves are on top. They're crashing down and around the characters who are underneath. It's actually deceptively simple to show these things. Things like, okay, the waves are on top, but then it's about also situating everything in the frame so it still works. Probably my favorite shot as an example of mise-en-scène. It's probably the best example that I have. Within the frame, what do you see? You see tiny little boat here. Now our focus is centered on that because it's in the center of the frame and it's a different color to everything, so we can clearly see it. The attention is focused on that, but we're aware of how tiny it is in the frame. It is very small in the frame. It doesn't occupy a large percentage. Now we're starting to see this, and this is sort of bubbling and writhing and everything, and to me it's like a steamroller. It's slowly but surely moving its way up the frame, just moving its way meticulously up the frame, and it gives this feeling of inevitability. When you see something moving up the frame and it's not wavering, it's just slowly but surely, with every frame it moves up the frame just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. It's going up and it's rising and it's going straight for this boat. You can see the currents are also meeting. They're moving and they're meeting at this point. So this line here is like a death line, you see, and the boat is getting closer and closer to this death line here, and it just makes you feel like there's no way out. It makes you feel like there's no way out of this shot, and these two characters are doomed. That's the feeling I wanted to give. I wanted the feeling of fear, of inevitability, of being doomed, and to feel the fear that they feel, and to feel powerless. The simple idea for this shot was to make the boat seem tiny. We've got this tiny little boat here, which occupies about that much of the frame, and then we've got this wave, which is coming over them, and look how much more of the frame that occupies. And then in the background, all we can see is other waves of a similar size to that large wave, which are also occupying the frame. You know, that's all we can see. We can't see any small waves, we can't see any land or anything like that. This look here gives a nice link in the editing. So we see this, we see that the character sees this, he's looking over his shoulder, he looks up, he looks back, and then what we see is we're drawn into his face here. We see him just look up, and he's got this look on his face like, oh my god, what's just about to happen? Now as an audience, we need to see what that thing is that he's seen. So then we cut to this, and that's what he's seen. He's seen the wave coming overhead. Here we're showing the characters big in the frame, so that we can see inside their head. We get a more empathetic view of things. We're linking what's going on here inside his head, all these thoughts like, oh my god, I'm going to die, my wife is going to die. Those thoughts are continuing here. So now we've placed those thoughts in this shot into this component here. Okay, next shot. This time, instead of focusing on the facial expressions to express that, to create empathy, I looked more at the body language. Here what we've got is we've got two characters in the middle. All of our focus is on them, but also every other element in the frame, even the boat, the lines of the boat are piercing them. They're all going there and piercing them. Now if I show you on here with the rain as well, we can see that every element on here, we've got water drops, we've got waves crashing, we've got the boat lines, we've got this larger wave, of course, and we've got the rain. And these rain droplets create little arrows with their shape, their elongated shape. So we've got here the equivalent of like 1,000 tiny arrows, all aimed at these two characters from all sides. So that in our minds is very powerful, it's very potent, and it creates this feeling of inevitable doom and pain and death, because you've got arrows piercing them. Now, this isn't literal, this is visual, it's just what happens in your brain. The rain is not actually piercing them, the rain is shooting over their heads. It's going over their heads, as is the wave, as is the water, most of the water droplets, and the boat is actually a kind of a passive object here, but we've used it. We've used the shape, the geometrical shape of the boat to imply that, but really it's a passive thing. By the way, they don't end up dying. I'm not going to spoil what happens to them, but they don't end up dying. But I wanted it to feel like in this moment, I wanted the audience to feel like they were going to die. The best kind of stories are the ones that are that they have very low lows and very high highs. Now, if you can make the lows as low as you can, the highs as high as you can, you will get a great story at the end, as long as it all makes sense and is woven into the plot. That's our aim as storytellers, really, is to make the audience feel things that they don't normally feel on a regular basis. So this was my attempt to do that. It should hopefully give you ideas of how you can do that to your stories and affect people in a deeper way. Now, you affect people in a deep way by making them empathize with other people and by using their primal instincts to trigger that empathy. This was one of the final shots before things start to turn around, so I really wanted to hit home those very sad, depressing, intimidating feelings. With each shot, I'm trying to build on the emotion of the story. So a lot of the time I try different things from shot to shot, as you can tell. With each shot, it adds a new layer onto the story. It adds a little bit more depth. Here's another really important thing that I've learned only recently, really. I've learned this. Although the shots work well when they are together, when they fit together well and they're edited and you see one run on from another, I actually think that the story can actually be found within each shot. And I don't mean the plot, and I don't mean the whole story, but the essence of what a story is, with the emotional connection and everything, and the meaning within the story. I think it can be found within each shot of this sequence. Put the story into each shot. Now you need to, in order to do that, you need to work out what the story is. What's the essence of this thing? With this, the essence of the story is that the character has risked everything to get a better life for his family. I've sort of found meaning within that story, and I'm trying to translate that here. So if you break down what that story is, like how I did then, it wouldn't be that it would be the whole story, but it would say he's risked everything. So part of that is we have to show the risk. So every shot here shows danger. In nature, the shape of the small component actually represents the shape of the whole thing, and vice versa. It's a fascinating thing, and we should strive for that in storytelling. So I told you there was an announcement that I was going to make. Basically, I'm creating a Patreon page. I've decided that I'm going to take the channel a step further. I really enjoyed what I've been doing so far. I've enjoyed creating, every 2 weeks I've been creating a video, and it's been really good. And thank you so much for all the feedback I've been getting. You guys have been really encouraging for me to carry on this. So traditionally, patrons are people who fund artists and creators to make things on a regular basis. So it's regular, recurring payments of whatever you think is a good amount. I'm not explaining this very well. It's completely up to you how much you pledge or whether you want to continue pledging, but you essentially pledge a small amount of money that will help to fund each video that I create. It's not open yet, although if you're watching this in the future, it might be open. If you're watching it in the future and it is open now, I will link to it in the description. And in return, you get loads of perks, things like sound effects, extra tutorials, extra live streams, extra podcast episodes. But I also want to know what you would like to see from the Patreon account. What kind of things have you been dying for me to create? So I'm going to link you in the description to a survey. It will take not even a minute of your time, and there you can tell me what kind of things you would be really excited to get from this Patreon. And yeah, make sure to check the links in the description, leave a comment if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.